Alright, hi guys, welcome to my first Blender tutorial. Today I'm going to be making a comic style shader on some shipping containers or some crates. So the first thing I'm going to do is delete my light. I'm going to go to the default cube. I'm going to rename it to crate. Then I'm just going to be scaling it on the Y. Oh, hold on, let me turn on my keys for you. There we go. I'm going to be scaling it on the Y and the Z axis. Just a little bit. I'm going to make it a little thin. Because these crates are pretty long, and they're pretty tall, and they're a little thin. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to press Shift D. It's going to have crate 1, and I'm going to actually name this crate edge because we're going to scale this up just a little bit. And we're going to go into it with tab. Then we're going to, you can move around your camera with middle mouse. I'm going to press Control R, and then scrolling my mouse wheel changes how many of these I get. I'm just going to have 2. Scale them on the Y-axis until we get close to the corners. Then I'm going to do this for this side as well. Scale them on the Z-axis. And we want little squares in the corner of the mesh, like right here. We want these little squares because in just a second, we're also going to do it on the front. In just a second, these squares are going to help us cut out the edges. I'm going to press 3, which will let me go into face view. I'm going to shift left click all of these big faces. And then I'm going to press the delete key and delete faces. Now we have a little edge piece. It's going to make it a little smaller with S for scale. I'm going to give it a solidify modifier just to make it a little physically thick. And I just need it to go a little bit into this. Not very much, it just has to go a little bit into the actual crate mesh, just like that. So then you can see there's, oh, actually it does need to go a little bit further in there because we do want it to actually connect with the crate mesh. There we go. Okay, now that we have the edge done, I'm going to add a new cube, move it to the side. Actually, we can leave it where it is. Okay, let's do it this way. I'm going to move it this way, and then I'm just going to start scaling it down on not the Z-axis. So I'm going to press S, Shift, Z, and this will say scale on the X and Y and not the Z. And then I'm going to make a little piece of siding. I want it to be pretty thin. And I'm going to press tab 3, click on this face, and make it thinner on the Y-axis with SY. And I'm going to move it where I want it to go, so it's almost in the mesh, just like this. Make it a bit taller so it interacts with the edges of the crate like this. Not so tall that it clips into the edging though. You can just scale it just like this. Then I'm going to move it. Actually, it's still a little fat for me, so I'm going to scale it on the X-axis. I don't want it to be that fat. I want it to just be a little apparent. Don't want it to be the main feature of the whole crate. I'm going to move it to the start of the crate. Then I'm going to click the array modifier, and I'm going to move it 1 on the Y-axis, 0 on the X. And this array modifier, basically this number controls how many of them there are, and this number controls how far apart they are. So if I want them about this far apart, I'll just click until we have enough, then I'll get them a little centered on the crate, and that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to set the origin of this to the 3D cursor by set origin to 3D cursor. I'm going to also call this create siding, just so we know what it is. Press Shift D for duplicate. Then I'm going to press RZ 180, and it will perfectly flip it right to the other side of the crate for me. And then I'm going to do that again by selecting this one and this one. Shift D, rotate Z 90. And then I just have to manually move these. GY, move this to the end. GY, move this to the end. And we'll clean up the array. Then you can move it with GX. Get it set up how you want. You can make it, you can change the value of how far apart they are, and it won't mess up the other sides as well, if you need to do that. I'm just going to line it up in the center with GX. Again, the bottom left does tell you what I'm pressing if you're not catching up with what I'm pressing. Let's make this 5, same as the other side, and then let's just put it in the middle. Again, these do not have to be perfect. We're not making something photoreal. It does not have to be insane, especially if this is one of your first projects. Boom. Now we have a crate with some nice siding. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select all of this, right-click it, move it into a new collection. I'm going to call it Original Crate. This basically says if I'm an idiot later, I can always come back to this crate and start back right from here, just in case I mess something up. So we're going to Shift duplicate it and then drag everything we just duplicated into this other collection. Then the original crate, I'm going to press the eyeball and the camera. And what this basically does, here, let me move this out of the way. What this basically does is it tells Blender that we don't want to see this and we don't want it to be rendered because it's basically just our backup. And then we have to go through here and apply all these modifiers, such as the solidify. I can press Control A, and I can go through here, click on all the pieces of siding, Control A, Control A, Control A, and Control A. Then I'm going to select everything, right-click, and press Join. And then I'm going to call it Instancing Crate. And this, with everything combined, you see how everything's attached together. So if I move or scale one thing, and then we're going to scale it down a bit with just the S key. And then we're going to right-click it, set the origin back to center of mass, just so it's easier for instancing and stuff. And then we're going to scale it down, press Control A, we'll lock in the rotation and scale, and then we can just get it out of our way because we're just going to use it indirectly. We're not actually going to go right to this one and change it directly. Then what we should do is we should get it looking how we want. So we're going to press the shading tab at the top. We're going to find our crate. And we're going to figure out what we want. So the material, we can just call it crate. Then we can add a object info mode. And this basically just lets me get a random color out of the color ramp that I'm choosing. So right now, it will be picking between black and white. It will just pick one. So if I change this, it'll change to white. If I add a few of these, we can add just 5 colors. You can, again, here you can add as many as you want. I'm just doing 5 to make it simple for the tutorial. I'll have like a gray color, a nice lighter gray color. Then I'll have a nice, let's see, like a pinkish red maybe. Then I'll have, and remember you have to move these so they're equidistant because the right one, if you're doing it this way, the right one will start against the wall. And see how there's no white on this bar in here? You have to actually move this one out or you won't be able to see that color. It'll just never show up. So I'm giving them some even space here, and then I'm going to change these to just simple colors like a little saturated green. And then the last one can be like a blue. Okay, we've got our colors. And now that we have our colors, we're going to add an image texture. And this image texture is going to use an image of dots. So I just found this on Google. You can make one in MS Paint or Photoshop or whatever you use, or you can just use Google. It's just a picture of a tileable dot pattern. And then I'm going to add a mapping node and a texture coordinate node. And these two nodes will basically just let me edit and make this really specific compared to how it normally would let me edit it. And then we're going to plug this in, and then we're going to see our dots pop up. You can see the dots are only popping up on the top, and the sides just have like these weird streaks. That's because Blender thinks that I'm looking at the box like this, and it does not understand that the box has sides. It thinks I'm only looking at it like this. So to give it sides, go to your image texture and change this flat to box. Then let it load for a sec. And now we have this dot texture evenly distributed all around our box. And then I think these are a little too small, so I'm going to make them a little bigger with this scale over here. So I'm going to make them like maybe 0.8. That'll make them a little bigger. And you can just change these as much as you want. Again, on your project, you can make them freaking huge. You can make them smaller. You can do whatever you want because it is your project. But I think I want my dots to be about 0.5 for now. And we can maybe change those later. And now let's plug in the color. So I'm going to add a mix RGB node, plug both my colors into it, and plug that back into the start. And then, as you can see, I'm getting like, if you go all the way to 0, it will only control from color 1, which is our different colors. If you go all the way to 1, it'll only control from color 2, which is our dots. So we need a mix that covers both of them. Depending on how saturated and dark my colors are, I sometimes go 0.1. Again, depending on what colors you have, this will change. Let's maybe try it with red. So if we look at red, maybe 0.1's not doing so good. Maybe let's make the red a little darker, maybe a little more saturated. And then that red's starting to look a little better. Maybe you could even go lower, maybe you could go like 0.5. But just mess around with the colors that you have, and you can make this look how you want. Then we're going to do the geometry node, which is not very hard, even though it might sound daunting. My mouse wheels are messed up over here, but it's okay. I'm just going to be mostly left clicking. So now that we have our material set up, I'm going to Shift A plane, and then I'm going to name it Geo Node. And I'm going to press Geometry Nodes. And then I'm going to click New and get rid of this. And from here, I'm going to drag Instancing Crate from the top right in here, plop it in, and put it on this line. Then we have our crate right here. So to do the randomly distributing of these, we're going to add a mesh line. And again, to search in here, you just press Shift A. We're going to hook this count up here, and then we're going to be able to control it from here. We're going to add an instance on points node. And this is going to be the instance. This is going to be the points. Here we go. The texture is now working. And then we're just going to have it be like 5 or 6, just so we can see. Actually, we want to make sure we're getting all the colors. Yes, we are getting all the colors. Let me change this white actually, because I don't like it being just a bright white here. Let's give it something like maybe like a beige or a brown. I think that looks better than white. Okay, again, you can use whatever colors you want here. It does not really matter. I'm just going to make mine a little easier to work with, a little darker, so I can see the dots really well. All right, let's make the blue a little darker as well. Okay, now in my geometry nodes, we have the mesh line with our crate instancing on these points, and we hooked this up to the group input. So with the little wrench, if we are out in this view, if we click on this wrench, we can change how many crates there are here from outside the node, which is very, very helpful. Then we're going to add another instance on points node with Shift D. These are going to be the instances. And then the points is going to be a 10 by 10 grid that has a 5 vertices on it with a distribute node. And the distribute node, here, let me just plug this in here so you can see what it looks like. The distribute node is basically a bunch of points. And these points is going to be what the crates are being put onto. So if I plug this in, this is what this is going to look like. It's going to put 1 billion crates here, but we don't want 1 billion crates. We want an orderly, nice crates that don't intersect and don't break. So what we can do is we can increase the minimum distance. Let's try 1 meter. Let's try 2 meters. So basically what this number does, it says crates can't spawn this close to each other. So right now I have it set at 1.74 meters. So now I'm just going to change it until I see clipping issues going away. I'm just going to keep turning it up. Boom, I don't see any clipping issues. Let's flip through some seeds and like basically this is what I'm looking for. I don't want to see any place where one rectangle is clipping into another rectangle because that will make our scene look a bit bad if there's just random clipping everywhere. So I'm going to increase this distance a little bit. We're still getting that issue there. Let's try 1.8. Okay, and if we flip through a few seeds, don't see any clipping going on. All of them are spawning separately. That's good. So 1.81 was what worked for me, but whatever works for you is what works. Then I'm going to plug the seed in here and the size. That means if I go back out here, I can change how big this is going to be, and it will randomly spawn crates in there. Just like that. I can also change the seed so it generates a new random. I can change how tall this is from outside here. Now the last thing we have to fix is that the crates are instancing correctly, except they are floating on top of one another. And to fix this, let me go to a side view. To fix this, I want my crates to not float on top of each other. So we're going to go to the mesh line, change the Z offset. We're going to make it smaller and smaller. Here, let's look at the gap between the first and second one because this will tell us if it's doing it right. We're going to make this smaller and smaller until they're stacked neatly on top of each other. We don't want any air in there. So it looks like 0.125 is about good. So there's no air in there. And now the crates are looking pretty good. We can turn the color on and boom. We're almost done with this effect already. Another thing I need to do is that we need to add the toon outline. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to my instancing crate over here. Let me get back here. Okay. Instancing crate. I'm going to add a new material in this little red ball called toon. You can name it whatever you want. I'm going to make it a toon shader. I'm going to make it dark black all the way. And I'm going to give this a solidify modifier from before, flip the normals, and make the material offset 1, which basically is saying pick the material that's in the second slot. And then I'm going to turn this a little negative. Hold on, I've done something wrong here. In the settings of this material, we need to enable backface culling, which basically is if we see 2 of the same, it'll get rid of it. So we can actually look for this toon outline. That is what I was forgetting. And then we can make it a little bigger. Okay. So when we have them all lined up next to each other and the camera is a bit farther away, this can look pretty good. Let's move the camera like this. Alright, so I'm about done with the tutorial. I'm just going to help you set up the scene that I made. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Now it's looking right. Alright, now that we have our crate correctly, let's get this, move it away from the scene, because what I want to do is duplicate it with Shift D. And then over on the right here, before you change any of these settings, click this 2, and it will make a copy of it and call it GeoNode 1. And now you have your original GeoNode over here. So if anything messes up and you can't get it how you want it, you can come over here and duplicate it back from the source. And then to finish setting this up, we are just going to make this smaller, maybe like a 4, maybe like a 5 actually. 5 by like 7. Just like this. And then let's move the camera a little bit further away. Maybe a little bit lower angle. Then we can add a few of these. And we can just add them all over the place. And their color is randomized. You can rotate the orientation as well, as much as you want. And then you can change the size of these. You can change how tall they are. You can do whatever you want to these guys. You can change the seed, make it an entirely new random set. You can change the colors as much as you want as well. Maybe this is like a 10 by like 12. This is like the big section of crates in the background that we're just going to see towering over the rest of our scene in the background over here. I think this will look pretty cool. Then these will be like, boom. This is the monster stack. Then maybe let's have another taller one right here as well. Give it a different seed, get taller. It's going through, boom. And now we've got some crates. This is looking pretty good. Only thing we need now, I'm gonna add a plane. I'm gonna scale it way up. Press tab 2. Click on the back edge, EZ. Those are the keybinds. Bevel, give it a bunch of segments, shade it smooth, then rotate it so it covers the back of the camera. And we're going to need it so it doesn't clip through the bottom of the crates, just like so. Then the scene's looking pretty good so far. We need to add one more thing. Actually, let's make this a little bit thicker. Boom. Even thickness makes it pop a little bit more, and then we can change this as well a little. Again, I'm just messing with this until I get it exactly looking how I want it to. Alright, I like the little tune outline we've got going. Then I can just add some lighting to the scene. I can just add 3-point lighting with 3-point lights. I can just put them wherever I want. 3-point lighting is really easy, and it's usually what I use in my scenes because I'm not super insane at lighting yet. I will say it's not one of the things I'm very talented at. I'm just trying to get by with lighting, so I just try to do really simple lights. That is going to be way too bright. Let's go ahead and put this back here, right at the back of our scene, and raise it up a little. Yeah, there we go. Just so we have the back lit a little. Then this one, we want it to be emitting like a slightly yellow light. Let's make it really bright. Oh, we gotta make it really bright. Put it right front center, so it's lighting up the scene, and the back crates and the crates that are more obscured are going to be way darker. Make this one a little blue. I'm going to give it really strong. Boom. And now in the material type, let's go make this metallic, specular, and 0.8 roughness. So we'll reflect the light how we want. And I think that looks pretty good. The last thing is, if you want to animate your camera, you press Camera, View, lock it to your cursor, and then wherever you want to start it, position it like this, then press I on both of these, move the keyframe as many frames as you want it to go, make it like 200, and then on frame 200, you set where you want it to end up. And then press I, unlock it, then if you press space, you'll have this nice animation going from one side of your scene to the other. You can pause at any time, render a still image, see how you like it, And yeah, that's the end of this tutorial. Let me know if you have any questions or if something didn't work in the comments, and thank you guys for watching.